James Barry, man, how are you doing, brother? So glad to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jason. It's a pleasure.
All right, so I'm really excited about this because the timing's perfect for our mutual friend James Quandall to introduce us. And I'm going to tell you why. I want to start adding more organ meats into my my feeding protocol, whatever you want to call it, my nutritional base, just because of all the nutritional benefits of it and everything. And I was talking to James about it, and he said, hey, you should talk to the guy that was just on my show not too long ago, the founder of Pluck, which is a company that makes spices with organ meat. So I'm like, well, this is pretty cool, because I think anybody listening that's ever wanted to kind of dive off into consuming organ meats, they realize it's just kind of hard to get past the potential taste. It's the idea of it. They'd rather just watch a Liver King bite into bull testicles with his shirt off, and just leave it at that. Just be entertained by it. So I guess the first place to start is and I know I want to hear about you being a chef, and then how did this whole thing come about with you? What are the origins of Pluck?
So I've been a professional chef for over 17 years, and I boiled it down to two things of what I've learned around health. If it's easy and it's delicious, you'll do it. And if I don't hit those two marks, it's going to be a fad, or it's going to be something you try for a week and then it falls off. But I have never been interested in snake oil. Like, I've never. I really want to help people. And I believe that the things that we can convert into our lifestyle are the ways that I would be able to help someone. So if I just help you, if I say, oh, hey, here's a new shake, you should try this, and it tastes gross, and you're like, but is it helping me? Okay, I'll try. So you do it for a week. Well, I don't feel like it really helped you. Even, you know what I mean? Like, even if you did it for a month, even if you did it for a year, I don't feel like it really helped you. Like, I want it to be something that like I call Pluck the Netflix of seasoning. Like, I want you to just go on autopilot with it, where it's effortless. It's so delicious that you want it, that you crave it. And then now you're no longer thinking about, oh, this is a healthy product. You're just thinking about, I love this stuff. I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
To me, when I can get you to do that, then I have achieved the holy grail of health, which is health now is a lifestyle, not just like some left brain conscious choice.
Amen. Love it. I love it. And the thing I like about that is that, have you ever read any of BJ Fogg's work on tiny habits or any of that stuff?
No.
Okay. Well, essentially, you just stumbled upon it. When you're trying to create a habit, BJ Fogg, which he created the Fogg habit model, James Clear, a lot of the Atomic Habits is based on BJ Fogg's work. And one of the things is exactly what you just said, man. If you will make it easy, if you will make and the BJ Fogg behavior model, and I know that's not what we're here to talk about, but it's like so cool because you have confirmed the hypothesis. If you will increase the motivation, you make it taste good, and you will lower the difficulty, you make it easier, then boom, you have the sweet spot. And it sounds like that's exactly what you applied to the principle of organ meats. And so, well, let me ask you this: as a chef, were you cooking specifically organ meats that were delicacies, or like, where does that come into play?
Yeah, well, in many ways, I'm no different than anyone that's probably using my product, in that I did not grow up eating organ meats. I wasn't actively cooking them or making them for clients or even myself, but I recognize, just like you, that they're necessary. That we are. I mean, I think it's like 93% of Americans are nutrient deficient, but yet we're not calorie deficient, right?
No,
We're
no.
we're we're an overweight and obese nation, so it's not about the fact that it's not like you can apply what's happening in third world countries where the kids are emaciated because they're not getting food. We are getting plenty of food. We're just getting the wrong foods.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is like, well, how do I get the foods that are important, that are the most nutrient dense, into your diet? Because as you mentioned, there's hurdles, man. It's like, so organ meats, I identified the following hurdles: is the associated ick taste. So I can talk to people that even have never tried organ meats and they will think they're icky. So right there, that's beyond just eating it.
Yep.
That's just, I just think it's going to taste gross, right? Then there's the sourcing. A lot of people don't know where or how to source it. And then there's the cooking of it. We've completely lost any kind of comfort or knowledge of how to cook organ meats. So those are the top three hurdles, and that's what I set out to solve with Pluck seasoning. So Pluck seasoning, for anyone that doesn't know, it's it's basically five freeze dried powdered organs. It's liver, heart, kidney, spleen, and pancreas. And we could talk a little bit later about why I
Yeah.
specifically use those organs.
Yeah.
But basically, I took freeze dried powdered organ meats. It's the same stuff that you find in supplements, that in the encapsulated supplements from like the Liver King. He sells Ancestral supplements. It's
Yep.
the same ingredient. We're all sourcing from New Zealand, and we're sourcing 100% grass fed cow organs. And so I'm using that ingredient and I'm combining it with just organic spices and herbs, and I'm basically offsetting the taste. I made it so it's a shelf stable powdered organ that you would keep in, on your counter or in your drawer, no different than any seasoning. So then I'm also making it so you don't need to know how to cook them, because you can literally get, I always joke, like, if you eat at McDonald's, get your McDonald's and sprinkle Pluck over it. I'm not advocating you do that, but I'm just showing you how easy it is. Like, you don't need to know how to cook to use seasoning. Just use it like salt and pepper. Just season the meal after you've received it or made it. And then the third thing is I'm sourcing it for you. You don't have to worry about sourcing. I'm even sourcing organs that you don't even usually have access to. I mean, you show me someone who's eating spleen and pancreas, and
Yeah,
I'll
I was about
show
to
you.
say I don't know where to go grab any pancreas,
Yeah,
real
it's
quick.
it's really challenging. It's really challenging. Most people, if they are eating organs, are doing liver. That's
Yep.
probably the number one. Some of them are doing heart, and some are doing kidney. But anything else is really challenging to get.
Wow. Okay, and I like that idea of at least you're adding some nutrition to something that could be pretty crappy as far or nutrition deficit, and in a nutrition deficit. This is the cool thing about this. So it takes us back to, and I've been really studying this a lot, that our ancestral diet, what we were meant to eat and the way we were designed to eat, does not fit with the environment we find ourselves. And you kind of mentioned it. The 10-cent calorie is a marvel of modern ingenuity. It's fantastic, right? I mean, being able to crush 300 calories for $3 is something that once upon a time was just never heard of. But we've kind of gone to this point now where it's really crazy that the danger, to your point, the danger is not having enough food. It's that we're in this environment where there's just too much. There's an overabundance, and that's crazy. And so, whenever was it as a chef that you started keying into this idea of ancestral eating and being in the disconnect between our habitat of this fast, ready-made food versus good quality, dense nutrition, high quality proteins. Where did you start to what was the catalyst that made you figure out we're not eating right, we got to do something, and then I'm going to develop a product that makes it to where it's more, well, I mean, there's no pun intended, it's more palatable for the general public to actually consume some of these good, dense, nutrient organ meats.
Well, when I went to culinary school, I learned of nourishing tradition. Well, I learned of Weston A. Price. So he was a dentist who basically was starting to notice that the diet of the time was affecting teeth, how teeth were coming into the jaws, how
Yep.
the shape of people's faces, and he was equating it to this, the standard American diet of the times. I think he was in the 30s. I could be off on that,
Yep.
but basically he was noticing that this diet was changing our bone structure and how our teeth came in. And so he had a hypothesis, and so he was fortunate enough to close his practice and basically travel the world, and he went to all these indigenous cultures before they had American food introduced to them. And he was noticing that they were thriving health wise, whereas we were not.
Right.
And so he started to basically collect all this data around it. And so now there's multiple books out there now based on his research, and there's a foundation that exists because of him, and it's called the Weston A. Price Foundation. And so they have a cookbook that I was introduced to when I was it's beyond a cookbook. It's also sharing the philosophy and kind of the background, but it's basically an ancestral cookbook, and it's showing it's showing how to properly prepare grains, for example, how you're supposed to soak them before you actually soak them, and even sprout them before you cook them or eat them. It shows you how to make, ferment products, culture products like cultured vegetables, sourdough breads, things like that, so that you can actually make the food more digestible and better absorbable. So you're working with the food instead of the food working against you. Because as many of us are learning, if anyone follows like carnivore diet, there's a lot of vegetables out there that actually are hurting us
Yeah.
rather than helping us. The phytonutrients, the vegetables that are actually potentially taking nutrients out of you, out of you rather than providing them to you. So Weston A. Price really dealt with that, and it resonated even when I was in culinary school. It really was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like, this is how we should all be eating. I did prepare food like that. I absolutely did follow the philosophy, but I still didn't incorporate organ meats then, even though they are very, very adamant about you need to add organ meats to your diet. I just still didn't really incorporate it because of my pickiness. I grew up a picky eater, and I was still kind of like staying in my lane of like what I'm comfortable in.
Right.
So it was always there though in the back of my head. I was always like, oh man, how can I get organ meats into my diet? How can I do this? How can I do this? And of course, supplements became popular, and that was one avenue. But I personally, I get tired of taking so many supplements. I have like periods where I'm really like disciplined around it, and then I have periods where I'm just like, I'm like capsule fatigue.
Same, same.
And
I
it's like,
mean, hey, to your point, and not to cut you off, but I have a bottle of Ancestral supplements from Liver King's company of some, I think it's just liver. And dude, I've had that sitting in my pantry for at least 6 months. And when I think about it, I'll take them. And you have to take so many of them,
yeah,
and it's so,
so many.
and when yeah, when you stack that with all your other stuff. So going back to what you were saying earlier, it's just not easy consumption. It's not top of mind to actually add that to all the rest of the stuff. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to confirm that.
No,
Yeah,
no, yeah,
I'm an example of what you're just saying.
yeah, and I am too. I mean, and I don't believe we're different. I mean, I think everyone out there goes through capsule fatigue, and just in general is looking for. We're all looking for that magic pill, right?
Right.
That thing that will take that just increase our health and make us thrive easily, right?
Yep.
But for my money, it's not going to be in a pill form. It's going to be in something that actually coexists with something we already do. It's going to be in a very practical form, and that's why I chose seasoning, because I don't need to get you to season your food. You already season your food.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a new habit, and to me, that's where the money, like, that's where the sweet spot is. If I can get you a health modality that does not require a new habit, now we're on to something. Now we're on to something that is actually sustainable and will actually work. And then, inevitably, I'm sure this is going to be a question you're going to ask, but people say, well, but how much pluck do I actually have to take to get the benefit, right?
Yep. Yep.
Because when you're taking a capsule, you're getting 100% product, and like you said, you're being told to take like 6 to 8 of them.
Right.
So that's a significant amount. That's probably about sometimes about a tablespoon of product. And with my seasoning, so we have 4 SKUs flavored. One is called all purpose, one is spicy, and one is zesty garlic. And I think you even have a couple of them there with you.
Right there, baby.
There they are. Yeah. So those three are not 100% product. So those have about 15% organ blend. And when I always stress people, like, don't get too tied up on that 15%, because here's the deal: it's freeze dried and powdered. When I take a wet, whole organ,
Mhm.
bloody organ, and I freeze dry it, I take 100% product, and it goes down to about 23%.
Oh
So
wow.
when I say 15% of a freeze dried organ, that is much higher if it was actually wet organ. I mean, it's a condensed product. So it's you're getting a good amount, and I like to call it, you're getting a micro dosing amount.
I
Okay.
like it.
I do have another product called Pure, which is 100% nutrient. It's only organ blend. It has no spices and herbs, no salt. It's just the organ blend. So that is for people that are like, hey, I want capsule amounts, and I just want a practical way to do it. And I'm like, okay, get Pure. It's cheaper than capsules. You can add it to smoothies. You can add it to sauces. You can even add it to ground meats. And just as long as you keep that ratio down, you won't know it. Okay. So it's a practical use of it. But here's why I push microdosing. So for my money, the health things are the things that we're doing effortlessly daily, right? So if I give you microdosing of organ meats, and you're frequently using them, because I advise you use it for every meal,
Yeah.
you're now getting cumulative effect.
Right.
And whenever anyone that doesn't understand microdosing, I like to use the example of glyphosate. So glyphosate is a product that Monsanto put out, I think in the late 50s, early 60s. It was in Roundup. And it's something that they sold us on. They said, hey, this is just micro amounts. It's not going to affect human health. The FDA even approved it. Micro amounts, not going to affect human health. Well, now we're in a place where glyphosate is in everything. It's
Yep.
in our water, it's in our air, it's in our food, it's in our soils, it's in breast milk, it's in hummus. Like we cannot get rid of it. And it is hurting our health severely,
Right. Right.
right? So microdosing works. It works to the negative, like in glyphosate, and it can work in the positive in organ meats, in Pluck. And I just stress though, the key with any thing that is going to be nutrient dense is you want it to be coming from a whole food. And that is the glory of what I've created, is that the organ meats are whole. It's a whole food. This isn't like we're not isolating iron or magnesium and then
Right.
putting it in the seasoning. This is a whole food that's raw, in a raw state before it's freeze dried, that's then freeze dried and powdered, and then I mix a blend, and then I add it to organic spices and herbs. So it is a whole food, which already right there protects the nutrients and vitamins in it. And then also it's coming from a source that is more bioavailable. Our bodies can recognize a whole food.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's, to me, it's a beautiful marriage of like no added habit, whole food nutrition, and it's effortless. Like you don't have to think about the fact. You could be even like 95% plant-based and be like, but I take Pluck. You know what I mean? Like you don't
I
have to
love it.
think about it, that you're touching or dealing with an animal product, but you're getting this amazing amount of nutrition.
I think it's freaking genius, and it's very much like well, before you and I got on, I do a standard protein shake every day that has my collagen in it, and it's easy. You just dump some powder. Don't have to taste it, and it works. Same thing with my athletic greens. Just taking all these vegetables that I'm not going to eat, and I put them in, and they come from a whole source. But all right, I want to try this stuff, so I'm going to try, just so the viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, check that out. I'm going to try the zesty garlic. Smells amazing, by the way. All right, so let's see what we got
Thank
going
you.
on.
Yeah, can you smell? So it's got like an umami to it. And
Uh,
umami is basically what we call the fifth taste. So there's sweet, salty, sour, bitter. And umami was discovered, I think, in the 80s in Japan.
dude, that's amazing.
You're like taking multiple tastes too. I love
Yeah,
it.
no, no, dude, that's it's, and I wouldn't just say if I didn't like it, just I wouldn't embarrass you on the show, but I'd just be like, okay, all right, no,
Yeah, yeah.
this is good stuff. This is good stuff,
No, and I actually don't mind if you were like, this isn't for me. I appreciate that,
that
but
is,
I can see from your face you like it.
dude. No, 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 that's
The
fantastic.
body doesn't lie.
No, no, all right, so I want to try the spicy because I love a little kick in my diet. So this stuff's got to be good. So
Now, so I always tell people, because as a chef with spicy, and you're going to appreciate this as a Texan. So usually when you get spicy products, they just blow out your taste buds. It's
right,
just spicy. You just get heat, and
right,
then you can't taste anything. You just taste the heat.
right,
As a chef, I'm not interested in that. Like I want you to still get flavor. So and I'm curious if you're going to pick up on this. You may find it not as spicy since you are a Texan, but what I tried to do is create lots of flavor and then heat, so that
okay,
you're still getting flavor. So let's
all
see
right.
what you think.
Let's see.
And you may need to actually do a good amount to taste the heat. I don't know.
No, it's just right. It's just right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That actually means a lot coming from you, because I really was trying to balance. Like I didn't want it to be mild. I don't want to say spicy and then have no heat, but I don't want you to lose flavor.
No, it's you know what. So in Texas, we know barbecue, right?
Yeah.
And this has a heat that it comes on slow and kind of gets you in the back of the throat.
Yep.
That's where I'm getting this. And man, again, it's delicious. I mean, and so do both of these, the zesty garlic and I've got the spicy, they have all of the pancreas, the spleen,
Yep.
the liver, and the kidney. Is it those four, and heart? They
Yeah.
all
So what we're doing is we have a 5 organ blend:
yep,
liver, heart, kidney, spleen, pancreas, and we're just using the same blend for all our products because it's a custom blend, and it's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of what we designed to be unique for the company. So if anyone ever copycats us or something like that, we have our blend that's unique. I guess
Well, no,
that's
that makes a lot of sense. And then I guess where your culinary skills come in is balancing the spices and
yeah.
making it to, I mean, I'm telling you, dude, I mean, James, these are delicious. Do you have competition on this? You're the only one I've heard of that does
We're the first.
organ.
Yeah, we're the first to come out with this, and I probably should patent the recipe or something like that. But I'm the first one to combine these ingredients, and I wish, I wish I could say, oh, I'm. It's because I'm so amazing, but I just almost feels like divine intervention. To be honest with you, I feel very grateful that I did it because it's so rare to come out with anything that's new these days. That's an actual real food product. Laboratory made easy, but not so easy when it's real food. And so I feel very grateful that I was inspired to do this. I have 2 kids, so as a parent, I'm even more grateful because now I can my kids love it. Like they put it on everything. We like when if they have toast or popcorn or anything that pizza, anything like that's typically not the kind of food you want your kids to be eating, they just sprinkle Pluck on it, and then I feel better as a parent. I'm like, great, yeah,
Right.
I don't mind that we just had pizza because you guys just put organ meats on it. I'm good.
No brainer, dude. I love it. All right. So now here's one of the things that I always like to find out whenever I see something. I mean, like, it's kind of like on Shark Tank, but I've got one participant to myself for the hour of this show or however long you and I geek out on this stuff. But when the audience sees something like this, they see a beautiful package, the product's there, I'm tasting it, it's real. To get to that stage, man, there's always ups, downs. It died. Oh, I thought it was a good idea. Then we needed money, and there's always the backstory, and that's what I love because so much of the Jason Wright Show, a large part of this audience, they're entrepreneurial. They want to know how do you get started, how do you go. So, kind of give me your hero's journey as an entrepreneur, getting this from, oh my gosh, I can't believe nobody's doing this. I'm about to make organ meats taste delicious and be able to spread them on food, to getting it into this beautifully packaged little bag that I'm holding in my hand. Let me get there. What did that look like? And how long did it take, and when did you finally
Yeah,
just
I mean,
jump off?
I know, right? I mean, well, the product started. We launched the site and sold product in January of 2021.
Okay.
Now it was about a year, 2 years before that I was developing the product, but I feel like my journey even with it started before that, just as a chef, and kind of like I always gravitated as a chef to different things than I found other chefs gravitating towards. Like I was not one of those chefs that was like knew who was the winner of some contest, chef I didn't follow that stuff. I was truly like in it for like, how can I make comfort foods healthier? That was really what I was in it for, because I recognized that comfort foods are where we gravitate. And I was like, how if I can figure that out, now I'm really helping people,
Yeah.
because that's what everyone's eating, right? It's comfort food. Um, so I always kind of had a little bit of a different perspective. I always felt a little bit like an outlier as a chef, just different from everyone else. Um, and then I had kids, and I was very adamant about wanting to get the most nutrient dense foods into their diet. And how can I do that where I'm not dealing with picky eating? Because all those parents out there with young kids know it's like freaking picky eating. Like, you feel defeated sometimes when you spent you've already worked really hard during the day, then you've slaved over the kitchen, and then you serve your food and your kid starts like having a tantrum because they don't want to eat your food, and you're just like, this is the last thing I want. So I was really like looking for effortlessness
Hmm.
in the kitchen as well, and with my kids. And then I started the process of like, okay, I have this idea. Now, does it work? And this was before COVID, so we were having dinner parties and things like that, and I had a lot of fun. Like, basically, I would have a dinner party, and I would use the seasoning in the food and not tell anyone. Now, everyone there was an omnivore, so I knew I wasn't, compromising anyone's diet,
Right.
but I wouldn't tell them there was organ meats in it. And then people would respond, and I would watch these people just go, "Oh my gosh, this food is just so good."
Yeah.
And then I would say at the end, I would say, "Well, I just gave you guys organ meats, and this is how I did it." And we would have, and everyone's face would be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. And so that made me start to go, okay, I think I'm onto something. And then I started down the path of just kind of working the recipe and making sure that it tasted good. I started with just liver powder because that's all I could get access to.
Mhm.
But once I made that taste good, then I started working with multiple organs to make a mix that would taste good. Then, so once I got the organ blend down, then I had to get the spice and herb down. So it's an interesting process when you're creating food, because you can mix the ingredients together and find the finished product, right? But then you have to go backwards, because when I go to order from that spice and herb provider, I have to have the blend taste good before it has organ meat in it. Just like I have to make sure that the organ blend tastes appropriate or good before I add spices to it. So there's almost a balancing act that you do with just the ingredients. And so basically for my company, I have two ingredients. I have two blends basically that have multiple ingredients. But once I get those blends, now I'm just combining them. And then I figured out what percentage worked so that you wouldn't know organ meats were in there, but that I was giving you enough organ meats to move your health needle.
Yeah.
Because for my money, I really see Pluck as a gateway to getting organ meats into your diet. I don't see it as the end. My goal is I want you to eat nose to tail. So I really do want to help you get more organs, more part of that animal into your diet. Pluck is just the gateway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I got to think too that it hits on a lot of, sustainability and that whole idea of, using all the resources at our disposal. I love that message. I also love the fact that I can do kind of like what George Costanza did to that chick whenever he got her to eat lobster on Seinfeld. If I have any vegan friends that are pissing me off with all their haughtiness about not eating any meat, I'm going to put some Pluck on their
They
food.
won't know. That's
Yeah,
what's so funny is they won't know. And
yeah.
I would almost guarantee this. This is what's kind of funny.
Uh-huh.
Is that when you put it on, so we get this comment all the time, like someone, let's just say, we all have those meals that we cook for ourselves or our families that are just we do them every other week, and they're just safety net. We know they
Yeah,
work, they're good, they're easy, and we do them. Well, I get so many comments where people say, okay, I made, let's just say, stuffed peppers. It's a hit in my house. I made it. All I did differently was I added Pluck to it.
yeah, yeah,
And that night when I served it, my family went crazy. They said, "What did you do differently? This is so good." They got seconds where they normally don't get seconds. So it's
yeah,
like the umami is what I was talking about earlier. The umami in organ meats actually heightens the other flavors. So
yeah.
it makes food taste better. So not only are you feeding people better flavor, but you're also going to get no different than when you stick your finger in sea salt, and you find out if your body is low on sodium,
Yeah,
you'll crave it. You'll
yeah.
actually get a craving for it. And then suddenly your body will say, "Oh, I'm done." And the salt will taste differently. The same thing happens with organ meats, but yet the craving doesn't stop. So you actually create craveability with organ meats and better flavor.
Uh,
So those vegans that you feed this to will probably freaking love it,
it will
and they
convert them.
won't realize that it's because their bodies are craving these nutrients so badly.
I love it. I love it. All right, so getting back kind of to just thinking about the hero's journey of the entrepreneur. So you decide that this is real. I'm going to do this. I'm on to something. So then what? Did you decide I'm going to do this in addition to continuing? Now, did you have your own restaurant? Were you head chef somewhere? And by the way, where did you go to culinary school?
I went to culinary. I don't think it exists anymore, or at least now it's a part of another program. But it was called the Natural Gourmet Institute, and it was in New York. And it
Okay.
was started by Anne Marie Colbin back in the '70s, and it was literally one of the only kind of healthy culinary schools out there. And they definitely leaned a little bit more toward vegan vegetarian. But what's so funny is that all the people teaching weren't vegan vegetarian, so they did meats. It's just I think they were known as being a vegan vegetarian place, but I really was there for the health factor, and
Yeah.
I liked at the time learning vegan and vegetarian, having that specialty, because then that way that set me apart from other chefs, so
Well,
that I knew how to do it.
Well, let me tell you something. Just to kind of get back in the good graces of all the vegans in the audience. One of my favorite restaurants in the world, and the reason why I asked, my daughter is a total foodie. She's a senior at the University of Colorado, and I know that Boulder has a really good culinary school there. She's looked into because she's actually a personal chef. That's one of
Yeah.
her jobs at school, and she is a type 1 diabetic, so she really has to focus on a lot, kind of like what you're telling me is she needed to make some. She already ate well, but obviously, whenever you don't have a pancreas and that works, then you start having to really manage what you eat. And so, one of our favorite restaurants happens to be vegan, which is Leaf in Boulder. And for anybody out there, if you've never gone to a vegan restaurant, which normally I think because we've gone to Boulder so many times since she's been in school there, we had tried every single restaurant there was. That we just like, well, let's just see what this is. And I got to tell you, man, this it's an incredible restaurant, and they understand how to be creative with plant-based,
Right.
foods. So that's what I like that is similar in your story is that you're finding things that, again, going back to what you were talking about earlier, that most people just aren't going to readily go, yeah, give me a kidney and let me see if I can, choke that down. Now, you decide to go ahead and make a business of this. What do you do first? Do you call and say, where do I get the organ meats? How do I get it dehydrated? I mean, kind of what was the process to map this out to where you're good? Because I know that's a lot of people out there that are in the audience that are entrepreneurs. They just don't even know what the first step is toward their big idea. They've got the idea, but then breaking it down into those smaller pieces to take that very first minor step. Did you just go ahead and get a dehydrator and make your own blend and go, this is pretty good after all, and then go from there? I mean, kind of how does the story go?
Well, so I had owned a business in LA. I used to private chef in Los Angeles,
Okay,
and I owned a meal delivery service for about 8 years in LA, and I self-funded that. So I
wow,
really learned a lot because I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew what I was doing as a chef. I didn't know what I was doing as a business or entrepreneurial person. And that's something actually that's really important distinction is I think we tend to think that because we're proficient at, let's say, making pies, then that means we're proficient at running a pie business. And those are two very different things. I'm sure you've
abs.
talked about in your podcast.
That's it. That's why I love these stories, because you just revealed something there that so few people understand. They think, well, I am crushing it in private equity and getting the funding for all these business owners, so therefore I should be an entrepreneur. And then all of a sudden, when they have to worry about how to turn the lights on, how to put gas in the delivery truck, how to source all the materials that go into the food that you're cooking and delivering, and still make money, that's where it gets kind of tricky. So
Yeah,
absolutely,
the hiring and the operation systems, managing people. I mean, those are all really those are talents and traits of themselves. And most people that are very proficient at making, let's say, I use the example pies, but like let's say someone who's an experienced chef, they're not always great at managing people.
sure,
So very very different qualities. But I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I learned a lot. It was kind of like my business school. So I then had about 5 years between that business and this business, or maybe 4 years, and the difference was huge. So I went into this business. You asked what was the first thing I did once I had the idea, was I started looking for investors because I knew right away I am not going to self finance this, because when you self finance, that means you're not getting paid,
yep, that's exactly right.
basically.
Exactly
You know,
right.
and I with my first business, I didn't get paid for something like 7 years, and so that what happens when you don't get paid, and this is really important for people to understand, that means you're working other jobs to keep yourself afloat. And when you're working other jobs, that means now your time and attention is dissipating. It's watered down so that you cannot focus solely on the business you're trying to create. So now you are divided, you're multitasking, and it slows the process down severely, and it is impossible to be great at it. You're now just subpar or good at a bunch of different things. And so I was very adamant about, okay, this idea is gold. I recognize that this is a unique and like innovative idea, and I'm the first one to do it. So I was very aware of, like, I got to jump on this. I got to really go out big, and I have to go out strong, and I have to lay out a really as the first to market, I have to lay out a really strong brand.
Yep.
And it was like, I'm not going to be able to do that alone. So I immediately found investors. I raised about, well, initially I raised about 350,000. That's how,
Dude,
like, so when
that's
we're
amazing.
talking,
That's that's
yeah,
that's that's strong. That's real strong for something like, yeah, wow.
yeah, but for a food product, it's not in many
Really?
ways.
That's I'm
Oh my
impressed.
gosh, because bringing a food product to a co-packer and
Yeah.
getting it actually on the shelves is very expensive,
Yeah.
very, very expensive. So if anything, what I'm now facing, and why I may start reaching out for more investors soon, is because I'm now with a co-packer and I now have fulfillment, and we're getting good placement, and we're getting more and more orders every month. So we're getting out there. But one of the problems that you run into is that now I have to place an order to the co-packer to ensure that I'm meeting demand,
Yep.
but I'm placing that order before I've actually sold it. So that means you have to have like almost $50,000 in reserve
Yep.
just to place those orders for the packaging, for the co-packing, for the ingredients,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
that's why a lot of businesses get line of credits, for example, things like that. But that's kind of the situation. It's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
It's a very good problem to have. But that's kind of currently where I'm at. Um, and so I got the investors. That was the first thing. And then I didn't try to DIY like any blends. I mean, I of course I had to come up with the spice and herb blend, and I had to figure out the 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 organ meat blend, but I didn't necessarily try to like freeze dry my own organs or dehydrate them. I was like, because this stuff already exists. So
Yeah.
I knew that the ingredients were being used by like Liver King and all these people in their capsules. So I was like, I just need to find out who they're sourcing from. And I did. I found out where they're sourcing from, and then I contacted that broker and I got in with him. And that was quite a long process, of course, because when you're a new company, no one really cares. They're just kind of like, oh, well, your order is going to be much smaller than my bigger orders, so you're going to get last.
Yep.
You're in line at the very end.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're at the end of the line. But fortunately, I people recognized that I had an innovative idea, and I was able to get some sourcing. Now, the biggest headache was actually the spices and herbs.
Really?
Yeah, because
Just from a sourcing perspective?
well, what's so fascinating is that every provider is different, and you can give them your blend, your recipe, and yet what you get back from them might usually taste completely different. It's kind of weird. Like you give them a recipe that is worked out in percentages and it's a ratio, and it should be pretty easy for them to replicate, but yet what you get back for some reason tastes completely different than what you created in your kitchen. So it's kind of like almost having to let go of like, well, is it going to be exact, or how close can I get it? And each provider sent me something different. And fortunately, the one we're currently working with right now, they were the best of all of them. And so I'm really happy with our current blend. As you saw, tasting it tastes really good.
Yeah.
Um, but we've also evolved. I mean, even in the year and a half we've been around, we evolved. So we originally launched with a blend that was slightly different. So I had black pepper in Pluck, the all-purpose, and then I also was using pink Himalayan salt. And basically, once I launched and was getting out there, I was finding that we were getting a lot of play in the carnivore
Yep.
arena. And I was noticing we would get feedback of like, hey, have you ever thought of using red mineral salt? Because that was the preferred salt of that community. And I loved red mineral salt. I was like, oh, I knew about it. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to use them. But the current provider of the spices and herbs didn't carry them. So I was kind of forced to take the best of what they had. Well, once I started getting that feedback, I was like, look, I'm going to find a provider that can do red mineral salt. So that's what I then did. And they ended up being not as reputable as I thought. Like they told me they carried red mineral salt, but they actually didn't. They had to order it in. And then even though they were organic, that the spices and herbs that would show up just were, I don't know. It was like the lemon peel was really hard and different. It was like how the things that they were sourcing weren't up to my quality and my desire. So then I had to quickly pivot from them to find someone else. And like I said, I'm really happy with who I'm working with now. And they did source red mineral salt for me. And it's just, yeah, it's great. It's a perfect marriage of like organ meats, red mineral salt, and then just really good organic spices herbs.
I love it. And see, everything you just said there is exactly what I want this audience to hear, is that story, because it's like this. Whenever I'm speaking to different groups of, when I'm doing a business advisor, I'm trying to do team, development or whatever, one of the first things I do in a lot of these exercises, I go, okay, let's say that you have to go to the moon and you have to get there by next week. What do you do? Well, the first thing that most people say is, "Oh, that's impossible. I can't do that." Yeah, but here's the deal. Here's a caveat. One of your children, your wife, somebody really important to you is held hostage, and the only way you save their life is to get to the moon. Now tell me, what do you do? And inevitably, the first thing they do is they call NASA. I was like, okay, there, you figured out the first step. And
Yeah.
so that's what I like to hear, is because in that, to you at this point, you probably take it for granted. Well, the red salt wasn't what I wanted, and it wasn't sourced properly. The ingredients weren't there. So, but what's behind that, what I know in reality as an entrepreneur, and what this audience I want to reinforce them to kind of meditate on, is there was a lot of disappointments and phone calls and what the hell do we do now? And I did what I thought the market wanted, and I got I did this, and then and then your expertise showing that, to your point earlier, your skill set that makes you a good chef. I wouldn't know what the hell is wrong with that lemon pill, but you will. I wouldn't know a bad spice or a lower quality spice from a higher quality spice. You will. And so I think it's always important for people that want to own and operate a business, you got to realize just what you said. It's not as easy as just deciding, I've got a great idea, watch me go. There's all these little things that to you at this point in your journey probably seem mundane. And yeah, it was a bunch of phone calls, and I stayed up one night and I had no idea how I'm going to continue. And yet here you are, you did it. And so that's why I kind of probe on that, because there's always a backstory. There's no, I had a great idea, and what do you know? I invented the light bulb, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
It's never that, right?
Oh no, it was a lot of struggle. I mean, I feel like I probably spent about eight months calling and going down one avenue, and then someone would lead me down a new avenue, and I just kept reaching out, and I would say the two things I kept telling myself as an entrepreneur that I was going to do differently than I did last time is, one of them was I was going to ask questions. I was going to just, no matter what, I was just going to keep asking questions, because I knew I was new to the food market. I'd never put out a product before the, CBG market. And I was like, okay, I am going to not pretend that I know more than I do. So I'm going to go in humble and honest, and I'm going to just tell people, hey, I'm new at this. I don't know what you're talking about. Like when they would, because inevitably you'd meet these old people that've been in business a long time. They'd be like, oh, what's your AOC to your this, and they'd be all using all these initials for things. And I was like, okay, this is great. Can you go slower, and can you explain what that is? And I just kept asking questions. And I was just upfront about, hey, I'm new, because no one's going to fault you if you just say, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm new. But if you pretend you know something, and then you're like, they're saying all these terms and you don't understand what they are, but you're pretending, they're going to see through that, and then they're going to say, okay, this isn't a reputable person. This isn't someone I can work with, because they're not going to be honest with me.
Or
You
they're
know?
not going to, or they're not going to get to the granular level, because you've led
Yeah.
them to believe, I don't have to go there with this person they know. Dude, that to me is gold. And you're looking at a guy, due to a fixed mindset for years and years, that would not ask those questions. I was
Mm.
so concerned with looking dumb and not living up to the kind of the image I built of myself as this, really smart, intelligent business person. And I wouldn't ask the questions. And a great example this audience has heard before, whenever people ask me, was it worth it to get an MBA and go to business school? And I'm like, I don't really know, but if there's anything that it did teach me, is this: smart people ask questions. And it took me spending way too much money on a degree that frankly I did not need at the time, not because I already knew everything, but just because it wasn't really going to do much more for me than I'd already learned, kind of like you said, through trial and error and making the mistakes as a business owner. But what it did for me is it put me in a room full of a bunch of people that I assumed were a lot smarter than me, that I could watch ask questions and then go, well, dude, if they're asking questions, then I sure as hell need to be asking questions. So I think that right there, brother, is some of the greatest wisdom you could have possibly shared with this audience.
Well, thank you. And something that, the whole imposter syndrome, I mean, it's not like that just goes away, of course,
Yeah,
because every new phase of your business, you enter an unknown. You enter a
right.
new place of like, okay, I don't know how to handle this. You
Yep,
could be seasoned, but then reach a new peak, and you're just
yep,
like, whoa, I've never been here before. What is this?
yep.
Am I going to fake it till I make it? Or am I going to just approach it with that humbleness and that kind of asking questions? And I'll give an example. So I joined this entrepreneur group, with some really big players, like, I mean, 100 million dollar companies, people that have been in the business way longer than me. And here I come in and, I'm this new to business, don't have at all as much sales as these guys do. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what am I going to contribute? And so I went to my first event a couple weekends ago. And I got so much feedback after that event of like, holy moly, you gave me so much value. I just love how you listen. I love the questions you ask. Like, oh my gosh, like I can't wait to continue to get to know you better. Like I got so much feedback with like that. And I left that event going, oh wow, okay, I'm not an imposter. Like I do have something to offer. And one of the things is simply sometimes just listening to the person and giving them like that feedback, that real world feedback of just like humanity, just
Yep.
giving them that, listening like a human, and responding just from my, I'm 48. So it's like responding with my 48 years of being on this earth.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes that is the value.
I could not agree more. I was just, I'm reading this book. I wanted to tell you, let me go grab it real quick. Audience, forgive me. All right. It's by Annie Duke, How to Decide. And it's about being a better decision maker. There it is. I recommend it to everyone. It's like a workbook. It actually has exercises.
I'm
And
writing it down.
one of the things that Annie Duke talks about, in fact, the chapter that I was just reading was how often what we'll do, if there's an art to asking questions, and I'm guilty of this. Like if I were to say to you, James, most organ meats taste like ass, and you just can't make them taste good. But I see that you've created a spice that might make it tolerable. What do you think about the taste of organ meats? Okay, that could very well make you start going, yeah, you're right, they do taste bad, to confirm what I'm saying. Whereas instead, if I would just ask the question without inserting my opinion first, just, James, how can you make organ meats taste more palatable? Then it's all based on you and your knowledge. Then I get the most out of your knowledge. And so it's how you ask questions and just the fact that you ask the questions as opposed to coming at with your opinion, with a question, your opinion disguised as a question. And so this is a great book, man. Yeah, Annie Duke. It's a lot of strategies for, and being a better, just being a better learner and understander of different topics. Like one of my favorite tactics. Let me put this down. One of my favorite tactics that she uses is whenever you go into an argument, and she uses, is the earth flat or round? Most of us, we will just say, if you say, is the earth round? And you and I would say yes, and say, well, no, it's flat. And you go, well, how do you know? And you go, I just know. But she says to go ahead and go find the scientific research, at least 3 bullet points that you could assert as to why the earth is in fact round, so that you know exactly what the hell you're talking about. And so all that boils down to, I think, is like what you've just said, is be someone who is humble enough to learn and to ask the questions. And I'm telling you, dude, I'm a year behind you. I'm 47, and it's taken me nearly all of those 47 years. It's one of the reasons why this podcast exists, is so that I have an excuse to get someone like you on the other side of that camera to ask these questions and make myself better and learn. And I realize just what you said, those individuals that have the $100 million companies, we're not unique with our questions. We all have them. We just don't all ask. And I think that
Right.
I wanted to park on this for a little bit, again, for the listeners, as well as to kind of reinforce in my own mind, the idea of being able to ask questions, man, it's paramount to success. And it took me forever to get that, not because I wanted to appear as a know-it-all, but because I didn't want to appear stupid. I mean, I have a lot of imposter syndrome everywhere I go, especially like when I was at SMU for business school. I was like, dude, they are going to kick me out any minute. They're going to realize they never should have let this hick from East Texas into this business school. And I always thought, well, and if I start asking questions, that's only going to reinforce what I already think, which is I shouldn't be here in the first place. And so kudos, brother. You figured something out that I think is invaluable.
Well, and I think it is, to your point. I mean, sometimes people ask, like sometimes the faker plays the role that they think they're supposed to be in. So sometimes people do just go like, okay, I was listening to Jason's podcast. Okay, and he said ask questions. So I'm going to just go to this seminar and I'm just going to ask questions. And they're asking kind of stupid questions, right? They're asking, and I actually don't believe in a stupid question, but I'm saying it's a stupid question because it's a question where it's evident they're not listening.
Exactly.
And so I think the
Exactly.
two really have to go hand in hand. You need to be listening and then let your question come from what you're hearing. Don't just come in and be like, why is the sky blue? It's like, well, what is that? I answered that earlier, first of all. And then B, why are you, what? Like now I have to go backwards to
Yeah.
answer your question where if you had just been listening, you would have already had the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So the two really, for me, go hand in hand.
Could not agree more. All right. So now you've got the product. We've got a little bit of the backstory. The product's out there. What's your primary sales channel now? I mean, where can people find Pluck? And where did Pluck come from? I know I probably read that on the website or something. Where did the name come from?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I know we associate pluck as like plucking feathers from
Yeah.
a bird or a plucky attitude, but actually, if you look it up, if you just do a search on pluck, one of the earlier definitions of pluck is animal organs.
Really?
I
Okay.
know a lot of people don't know it, but I can't take credit for it. My branding team, they found it, and I was like, the minute I heard it, I was like, oh, that's strong. That reminds me of like, Kleenex or Google. It's
Exactly.
just a strong word, and I'm
Crayons.
like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to take it. I'm going to take it over and
Like it.
get you start associating pluck again as organ meat.
Like it. Like it. Okay. And so back to where do we buy Pluck?
So we're a Shopify store. That's where
Okay.
that's the channel I chose. So we're at eatpluck.com, and we have the 4 SKUs that I mentioned earlier. Currently, we have some more stuff coming down the line. I have a lot of ideas, practical ideas of how to get nose to tail into people's diets. So I'm excited as the company grows to continue on that mission because there's a lot more even than what we've discussed in terms of how to get these organs available to people, how to get these products available in the U.S. It's an uphill battle a little bit because it's a battle of the USDA. It's a battle of supply chain. It's an issue of getting these ranches getting access to their organs because a lot of people assume that if I bring my cow to a meat processor that I have 100% ownership of that cow, and that's not actually true. A lot of the meat processors limit what you can get back from that cow, and it's based on their HACCP plan. And it's also based on your sales channel. If you're selling directly to the consumer, then you have more access. If I'm trying to sell in a grocery store or retail, then I have less. So there's a lot of red tape, a lot of hurdles, and my goal is to work on those so that I can eventually create more products that are utilizing other organs that will help and support people's health.
All right. So along those lines, okay, I'm gonna pull a little bit of a James Altucher on you right now because um, one of the things that James is really good about doing, and he's infinitely brighter than I am. But I'm looking up right now. He had the folks, the guy that created Pig Out, the plant based pork rinds. And so what I'm thinking is, as you develop, like I'm thinking, my God, this stuff would be so good on something like that. So if you've got the person that's not going to eat pork, they don't like pork rinds, but they want plant based, but they're not averse to organ meats in the right, channel or delivery, then man, to have some pig out pork rinds that are seasoned with Pluck, dude, I
Oh
think
yeah.
that'd be kind of
Well,
amazing.
I already have ideas. I mean, like, so if you go to our site, we have a whole recipe page section. And like, so I've already shown people how to make pluck nuts, for example, like how to roast nuts with pluck on them. And it's freaking delicious. Popcorn with pluck on it. We call it pluck corn. It is, it is out of this world. It is so good that you won't be able to eat popcorn without pluck again. Cause it takes popcorn to such a whole new level
Yeah,
that popcorn without pluck tastes plain.
like it.
So, like, I would love to eventually partner with companies or even make my own products where I'm utilizing pluck in these ways. So I'm putting it on
Exactly.
chips or popcorn or
Mhm.
nuts or coconut or, in sauces and dressings and all these different vehicles so that I can do exactly what you're talking about, kind of just get these organ meats in your diet, but in an effortless way because you're already using most of these products, you're eating these snacks or whatever they are. So absolutely keen to do that. Absolutely.
Well, what we need to do is you need to leverage the, and he may get upset with me for saying this, but I don't think he will. But our mutual friend James Quandall that brought us together, he actually knows James Altucher, and Altucher is just, and if by chance James you come across this, James Altucher or Quandall, um, James Altucher is brilliant. He is a master. He would take something. You should be on his show and talk to him about all the different things you could do with Pluck. It's just because it is a great product. I love it. I mean, I'm going to start ordering it now. I can't tell you how grateful I am for you sending me the care package you did. But and for the listener out there, it tastes amazing. I'm going to have it tonight. I think I'm going to season up ribeye with it. I think that just meat on meat, baby.
Yeah, well, and don't stop there. A lot of people sometimes think that because it's coming from cows, that it needs to go on just meat, cow meat, beef, whatnot. I'm always like, I designed this to be versatile, and even when I designed it, I didn't know how versatile it was going to be. But I've heard we've gotten feedback from customers. I mean, I haven't heard one thing someone's tried on it that doesn't taste good. And we even joke like it tastes great on everything but ice cream. But then we had a customer say, "No, I tried it on ice cream and it was actually really good." So, I say follow your own taste, but really go crazy. Like I tried it on oysters, for example.
Oh, I could see that.
Delicious.
Yeah.
It tastes really good. We've been using the spicy Pluck when we do tacos, and I'm talking any kind of meat, like whether it's pulled pork or beef, or it doesn't matter. And I'm definitely one of those people. So I use a lot of ancestral blends when I'm
Mm-hmm.
making food for my family. So I'll do the ground up meat with liver or heart in it. Force of Nature has a blend. So I'll use those, but I'll still use Pluck in it too. So I do both. And what else? My kids put it on eggs all the time,
Yeah.
toast, rice, or even any vegetable. We do it on fish, chicken, lamb, any kind of red meat, anything like that. So really go crazy. I even sprinkle it on salads. When I have a salad, I literally
Oh,
just
hell
sprinkle
yeah.
it right over the salad.
Yeah. No, I
So
totally do
so
that.
it's really versatile, and just go crazy. And if you find something you're like, oh, it didn't taste as good on this, then that's just information for you. Then okay, well, I won't do it on that again. But I challenge you to find something that doesn't taste good with.
No, I think it's no brainer. I'm going to be using the heck out of it. I think it's awesome. All right, so we know where they can get you. Where else can people follow Pluck, support Pluck, learn more about the product? Oh, but one question. Okay, I'm being a terrible host here. I got to ask you one question. You're a chef, dude, so I got to ask you this question. If I come over to your house and you're going to make just your signature dish, you're going to make something that just makes me go, "Oh my gosh, I hope we get the invite back to the berries because that was freaking awesome." What are you going to make me?
Well, I love a good brisket. I
Oh
do love
yeah,
a good I
you're
love a
talking
good
to a
brisket.
Texan baby. All right.
I do love a good brisket, but where I really just kind of I go geek is sauces. I love sauces. So
Okay.
I really excel at dressings and sauces, and so it would almost be like it almost wouldn't matter what I made you,
Yeah.
because I would make sure that the sauce or the dressing with it was so superior that it would make anything taste good. You know
Like
what I'm
it.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you would almost kind of freak out just by that. And so I could even make you the simplest dish, like a salad, but I would make it so you would still freak out because of the dressing.
Okay. I got to tell you something you'll appreciate. As someone, and for the listener out there, when you start eating real foods and you start doing things that are like, I mean, I would love that because one of the things that I have just started doing probably within the last 2 years is making my own salad dressings. Now, I just do it
Hmm.
really simple. It's going to be my staple is going to be a little bit of honey, a little bit of lemon, olive oil, salt, pepper, maybe some garlic salt. That's kind of just maybe some balsamic, but that's it. It's very basic, basic, basic. And just that, dude, I will not eat salad dressing off the shelf anymore. I won't do
No,
it. So,
it's
so,
game changing. So
oh,
hey, I'm gonna give you huge value right now, you and your audience. So here's the ratio. Here's how to make your own salad dressing. It's a
bring it.
simple ratio.
Okay.
Okay. So it's 3-to-1. So
Okay.
basically, it's 3 parts oil
Okay.
to 1 part vinegar or lemon juice or lime juice. And we call that the acid. Whatever the acid is, that's 1 part. And so when I say ratio, I'm talking whatever the vehicle is. So let's just say it's a tablespoon. So it's 3 tablespoons oil, 1 tablespoon acid. It doesn't matter what the vehicle is. It's just do 3 of whatever it is and use the exact same one for the one part, but just do 1. So that could be even the cap. Even the
Okay.
cap to the olive oil could
Got it.
be the vehicle. So
Okay.
3 caps of all oil and then to 1 cap of the vinegar, and you just got to use the same size cap.
Okay.
So that's the base. That's the ratio base. And then from there, you add whatever you want. And a lot of people, one of the ways to get out of a bad dressing is to add sugar. That's what a lot of restaurants do, is when you get
I've
something
done
too
that.
bitter.
I've
Yeah.
done that.
When something's too bitter, you add honey or some
Yep.
sugar to it,
Yep.
right? So one of the things you can do to not fall into that is you could even add like something that's naturally sweet. So like what I do sometimes is I caramelize onions.
Oh yeah.
And then I blend a little bit of that with the dressing because it gives you that caramelized onion taste to a savory. It's really good on a savory dressing.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll take a date and I'll, pull out the pit, but
Yeah.
I won't use the whole date because sometimes that's too much. Maybe I'll just use half of it or something. So you can utilize whole food over
Like it.
processed food. You can utilize a whole food to get that sweetness. And it's just once you go whole food and you're utilizing all the natural flavors from these real foods in your dressings, it's game changing. And as you said, you won't be able to eat the store-bought stuff because you'll taste how bad it is.
Yeah.
They use horrible oils. A lot of times they're using like stabilizers and things to make it so it doesn't go rancid on the shelf. Sometimes it already is rancid and then they're adding flavoring so that you don't realize it's rancid. So there's a lot of things that happen on processed store friendly, or shelf friendly products. So, and the secret with a dressing too is just use a mason jar. So
Okay.
you don't even have to get complicated. Do the ratio I said, add your garlic, salt, or whatever you want to add to it, and then just shake it
Okay.
and you're
Okay.
done.
Love it. Love it. Love it, man.
It's the 2-minute dressing.
Fantastic. Well, I may just have to make a salad tonight to go with that Pluck seasoned ribeye, dude. This has been awesome, and you got to come to Texas. And if I'm ever in Portland, I don't know when I'll be out in the Pacific Northwest. I told you these days, I guess Boulder, Colorado is about as close as I get to you. But if you ever come to Texas, we got to sync up, man. This has been
Yeah,
so much
that'd be
fun,
great.
James. Thank you so much,
So much
brother.
fun.
And
Thank you. And thank you all for listening. And just thanks for having me. It's just been such a pleasure.
all
Really.
right, sit tight. I'm going to do a sign off, and then I'll say goodbye to you after I quit the recording. So sit tight real quick. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on the Jason Wright Show today. I tell you what, James, congratulations on an incredible product. Thank you for being here. And if you want to try some, go out and order it. I'll have all the information in the show notes where you can find all the Pluck recipes, everything. I will have it there for you. And remember, when it comes to your organ meat consumption and your food intake, do like you should do in everything, which is to improve always and always. He's James, I'm Jason, and we are out. Thanks for listening.